They gave my college fund to my sister's dog. Said, "You're a nurse. You'll survive." So when that dog needed $7,500 surgery, I paid the bill in quarters. Rolled, stacked, and delivered. Right in the middle of her wedding. I didn't scream. Didn't argue. I just watched their faces freeze as the tank rolled in. Years of being the backup daughter, paid in full. Not in words. Not in guilt. Just metal. Just weight. Just silence. Because when they chose a poodle over my future, they didn't expect I'd keep the receipt. But I did. And that receipt? It clinked. Loudly. Right between the vows and the first dance. I didn't always resent my family. There was a time I thought love meant staying quiet, doing what was asked, being the dependable one. Growing up, our house was loud. Brooke got most of it. She was the golden child, glittering birthday parties, sleepovers, and trophies lined up like museum exhibits. I was the background, helpful, quiet, reliable. Mom used to say Haley just gets it. She's so mature. But what she meant was I didn't complain. I did laundry. Drove Brooke to her dance lessons, skipped field trips when they forgot to sign my permission slips. Dad tried to balance it. He traveled a lot for work, but when he was home, he noticed things. He praised my grades, my art projects. He once said I had a gift for healing. That stuck with me. So I became a nurse. I didn't ask for help, just scholarships, part-time jobs, and a loan or two. I thought maybe after I graduated things would shift. They didn't. Brooke moved back home to start her business, a luxury pet accessories line. She brought her poodle Duchess, who wore designer raincoats and had her own Instagram. The attention followed. Mom obsessed over Duchess like she was royalty. Brooke's building something she'd say. Support her. Meanwhile, I covered groceries, fixed the broken boiler, took extra shifts when Mom needed help with bills. One afternoon, I found a brochure for a nurse practitioner program tucked under the mail pile. It was addressed to me. Fully funded. I'd been accepted. I brought it to the kitchen, heart pounding. Brooke was hand-feeding Duchess organic blueberries. Mom skimmed the paper and said flatly, "Oh, honey, about that. We used the college savings." I blinked. "What?" She wouldn't look at me. Duchess needed surgery last month. Her hips were deteriorating. It wasn't cheap. "You used my college fund. For a dog, Haley, you're already a nurse. You can always reapply next year. Brooke's business depends on Duchess." This was urgent. Brooke just looked up and said, "You're being kind of dramatic." I felt everything go silent inside me. No yelling, no slamming, just this quiet collapse. Dad wasn't there. He was abroad on a long assignment. Mom had stopped including him in most decisions anyway. That week, I packed a suitcase and moved into the on-call room at the hospital for a while. No one noticed. When I finally texted Mom, she just wrote, "Hope you're not still upset. You know we love you." Months passed. I worked, saved, applied again. Silence from home unless they needed something, ride to the vet, help fixing a clogged sink. Then one night a call came from an unknown number. It was Brooke, sobbing. "Duchess," she collapsed. "They say she needs surgery." "I don't have the money. Mom said you'd help." I sat alone in the break room. On the table, my acceptance letter to the same grad program. Deferred. Again. I said nothing. She begged. Mom got on the line, said, "This is Family Haley, please." And something in me cracked. Not anger, not pain, clarity. They'd made it clear what mattered to them, and I would give them exactly what they asked for, down to the last cent. The day of the accident wasn't dramatic. It was just cold, wet, ordinary. I'd pulled a double shift at the hospital, 14 hours on my feet. My shoes were soaked, my back ached, but I was used to that. I was halfway across the crosswalk when the truck ran the light. I don't remember the impact, just headlights. Then, nothing. When I opened my eyes again, I couldn't move. Everything was blurred, the ceiling, the voices. I heard beeping, people yelling, "We've got a nurse down." And someone whispered my name, Maya. Maya was my colleague. She held my hand and kept saying, "You're okay, Haley. Stay with us." But I wasn't okay. Multiple fractures, internal bleeding, brain swelling. I was placed in ICU. Unconscious. Tubes everywhere. Machines keeping me alive. Maya told me later they tried to contact my emergency contact, my mom. When they reached her, she answered sleepily and said, "I'm walking my daughter's dog. Can it wait?" The nurse said no, it couldn't. That I might not survive the night. Mom replied, Duchess has a schedule. I'll come this afternoon. Then she hung up. They tried again. She didn't answer. She didn't come. Brooke was unreachable too. They were in New York, apparently some designer event, so Maya stayed. She rotated shifts with other nurses. They sat by my bed, whispered updates, held my hand, treated me like family. The next morning I coded, flatline. The team revived me, but I slipped deeper into a coma. Still, no one from my family came. On the third day I moved a finger, the tiniest twitch, but Maya saw it. Haley. That's it. I see you. I wasn't ready to speak, but I could hear. Whispers. Pity. She's got no visitors, just coworkers. Did her family even show up? She's been here 4 days. It burned. By the 5th day, I could whisper. I asked Maya to write down a name, my dad. He was listed as traveling for work in Europe, according to Mom, but something didn't add up. If he knew he'd be here. I asked Maya to help me find him. I didn't have his number. Mom had updated the emergency contact form, but I remembered where he worked. And Maya moved mountains. She contacted the company, tracked his location, found out the truth. He wasn't in Europe. He was in Asia, on a short trip. He'd been told I had a cold and was resting at home. Mom had lied. On the 8th day, I was strong enough to sit up. I asked Maya for a pen. I wrote a letter. Every truth I had pieced together. Every betrayal I'd heard while drifting in and out of consciousness. How Mom had told the hospital I wasn't a priority. How Brooke had whined about the visiting hours during her one appearance. How they never once contacted my dad. How I remembered even in fog that I was alone and their silence had been deafening. I wrote it all. And then I added what I'd overheard when I finally made it home for one night. I had taken a cab. No one knew I was discharged yet. I just wanted to grab a sweater. Something familiar. Instead, I walked in on Mom's voice echoing from the living room. She wasn't alone. She was with a man I didn't recognize. She laughed softly and said, Thomas thinks Brooke is his. Poor man. I froze. She kept talking. Mentioned DNA, lies, secrets. I backed out quietly, my heart pounding. That night I wrote a second letter and included proof, emails, recordings. DNA documents I'd found years ago but never understood until now. Maya helped me mail it to Dad. Overnight express. 2 days later, he was standing beside my bed. I was weak. I could barely hold his hand, but I saw his face. And for the first time in years, I saw fire in his eyes. He kissed my forehead and whispered, I know everything now. Then he added, I'm sorry I wasn't here, but I'm here now, and I'm not leaving. Dad didn't yell. He didn't throw anything or storm out. He just sat beside me, holding the letter I wrote, reading every word like it was gospel. When he finished, he folded it slowly. His voice was quiet, measured. They lied to me for 28 years. I nodded weakly. My throat still burned from the tubes. He touched my hand. But you didn't. You told the truth, Haley. You always have. Later that day, Maya brought him a flash drive. Inside was everything emails between Mom and her longtime affair voicemail snippets and a scanned copy of a paternity report. 0% match. Brooke wasn't his daughter, and I was his only real child. The next day he left the hospital quietly, didn't tell anyone he was back in Boston. He said he needed to see it with his own eyes. When he walked into our house, Mom was setting the table for brunch. She dropped a fork when she saw him. You weren't supposed to be back until tomorrow, he finished for her. Yes, but I got your daughter's letter. Brooke came out of the hallway holding Duchess in one arm and a green juice in the other. Dad, she blinked. What's going on? He didn't answer. Instead, he placed the flash drive on the table and said, This is everything. Haley didn't say for years, You might want to sit down. He didn't raise his voice, didn't argue. He just showed them who he really was when he was done being deceived. By evening, the locks had been changed. Mom begged. Brooke cried. But Dad had already called the lawyer. Divorce papers were drafted. He was calm, but resolute. You made me miss my daughter's life-or-death surgery to protect a lie, he said. I won't miss another second making the same mistake. Meanwhile, I was healing. Physically, I was improving fast. Emotionally, that took longer. I stayed with Maya for a while. Her apartment was small but warm, safe. Her wife brought me soup. Her dog curled up at my feet. It was the first time I'd felt cared for without conditions. Dad visited daily. He brought puzzles, made terrible jokes, even tried cooking. And one afternoon he brought a banker's box. "What's this?" I asked. He opened the lid. Cash. Well, he said, technically, coins. Roll after roll of quarters. He smiled. I looked into Duchess's last surgery. Around $7,500, wasn't it? I blinked. Why? Because that was your college fund. His voice hardened. They spent it on her. It's only fair we pay it back with interest. I laughed. It was the first real laugh I'd had in months. Let me do it, I said. He hesitated. You sure? I nodded. But it has to be memorable. A few weeks later, Brooke was getting married, a luxury rooftop venue catered by the same company that did red carpet galas. Mom tried to reinvite me last minute, probably because Dad had cut her off financially. I said I'd come. She sounded relieved. What she didn't know was that I wouldn't walk down the aisle. I'd roll in with a tank. Literally. Dad helped me rent a massive clear acrylic donation tank, the kind you see at charity fundraisers. We filled it with $7,500 in quarters. Each one rolled. Each one counted. At the front, a laminated note read, "Reimbursement for Brooke's dog surgery. Love, Haley." I arrived halfway through cocktail hour. Maya and her wife wheeled the tank through the marble lobby like it was sacred cargo. Heads turned. The clinking echoed. Mom's smile faltered as I approached. Brooke's jaw dropped. The groom looked confused. A waiter dropped a tray. I didn't say a word, just rolled the tank to the center of the reception, then turned and walked away. No yelling, no tears, just coins. Stacked truth, cold gleaming irony. The next day, Brooke posted a dramatic story about being attacked with financial trauma at her wedding. People laughed. I didn't respond. I didn't have to. Because that same afternoon, I received an email from the nurse practitioner program, full scholarship reinstated. Start date fall semester. I showed it to Dad. He smiled. This time it's yours. No dogs, no lies, just you. And that night we sat in the living room of our new apartment, just the two of us. No barking, no drama. Just peace, and a quiet clink from one last leftover quarter I dropped into a mug. Cheers, I said. The first thing I did in our new apartment was take down the old family photo, the one where Brooke was front and center holding Duchess while I stood off to the side. I replaced it with a framed print of my scholarship email, not out of spite, just as a reminder that this time it was earned, and it was mine. Dad and I settled into something we'd never really had before: quiet, steady mornings. We weren't trying to impress each other. We were just showing up. He made coffee. I walked a few blocks each day to build strength back in my legs. I started therapy, not because I was broken, but because I didn't want to carry their silence any longer. We talked a lot. About his regrets. About my childhood. About the moments he missed not by choice, but by design. He apologized over and over, and not once did he say, "But I didn't know." He said I should have known. And now I do. There's something powerful about being seen, not praised, not compared. Just seen. Maya visited often. Her wife brought plants we had no idea how to take care of. They stayed for dinners, brought laughter into our space. That little apartment became a kind of sanctuary. Dad said one night I thought family was about duty, but maybe it's about effort. And it was. The effort he made now, every small act, meant more than any grand gesture. As for Mom and Brooke, well, karma didn't come like lightning. It came like water, slow, steady, and impossible to stop once it started seeping in. When Dad filed for divorce, he made it clear he wouldn't fight dirty, but he would fight fair. They lost the house, the accounts. Mom took a job at a boutique, one of those places she used to shop at with Brooke. Now she folded scarves behind a register. Brooke's marriage lasted 3 months. Apparently, her husband didn't enjoy being shouted at over salad forks or waking up to the sound of a dog yapping at sunrise. When the money dried up, so did her friends. She messaged me once, a long paragraph about how we're still sisters and blood is thicker than pride. I didn't answer, not out of hatred, but because some bridges don't burn, they freeze, and I'd already walked away across the ice. That Christmas, Maya, her wife, and a few of my coworkers squeezed into our tiny living room. We roasted a small chicken. Dad tried to make pie and failed gloriously. We laughed until our sides hurt. Someone played old jazz records. And when the night was nearly over, I stepped onto the balcony with a mug of tea. The city was glowing beneath a thin layer of frost. Quiet, gentle. Dad joined me, wrapping a blanket around my shoulders. Still thinking about them, he asked. I took a breath. No, I said truthfully. I'm thinking about how I almost gave up who I was just to be enough for them. He nodded. And now I'm just enough. For me. We clinked mugs. And then he smiled and said, I still have 2 boxes of quarters in storage. I laughed. Save them. Maybe I'll pay my tuition with those. Or maybe I won't need to, because sometimes dignity pays better than revenge ever could. But still, that clink of metal hitting the floor that night, it was worth every penny. People say family is everything, but what if the people who share your blood treat a dog with more dignity than they treat you? What if love has to be earned again and again, but only by you? Would you still call that family, or would you do what I did? Step back, speak less, and let the silence echo louder than any scream. Because in the end, it wasn't the quarters that made them listen. It was the fact I didn't need their permission to walk away. So, what would you have done?